When you hear the name Catwoman, you'd probably picture a master thief, complicated anti-hero, and maybe the one true love of Batman's life. But what if I told you that the idea of Catwoman is way older than Gotham City? Before she ever cracked a whip, her persona was being shaped by ancient cat goddesses, the glamour of 1930s Hollywood, and a creative team who saw both cats and women as cool, detached, and unreliable. Today, we're digging into the legends and the real-world drama that gave us DC's ultimate femme fatale. To really get Catwoman, you have to go back to her creators, Bob Kane and Bill Finger. In 1940, they looked at Batman's world and felt something was missing. They wanted a friendly foe who committed crimes but was also a romantic interest in Batman's rather sterile life. The Joker was a homicidal maniac, a force of pure chaos. Batman needed a different kind of challenge, someone who could mess with his head and his heart, not just another monster to punch. The inspiration didn't come from some dark gothic horror. It came from the movies. Bob Kane was a huge film buff, and he pictured this new character as a cocktail of Hollywood's most magnetic leading ladies. He specifically pointed to the bombshell Jean Harlow and the mysterious Hedy Lamarr as blueprints. These women weren't just pretty faces. They were the definition of the femme fatale. Lighting up the film noir genre, they were smart, dangerous, and totally captivating. Catwoman was designed from day one to be that classic noir figure, just dropped into a comic book. She's mysterious, morally gray, and completely irresistible. She was never supposed to be a killer. She was a jewel thief, a cat burglar with style. That decision to make her a romantic-friendly foe is the foundation of her entire legacy, and it's what separates her from every other villain in Gotham. So Kane and Finger had their why, but they needed a what. What kind of symbol could possibly stand as an equal and opposite force to a creature like the Bat? The answer felt almost primal, as Bob Kane put it. A cat was kind of the antithesis of bats, and this wasn't just a catchy gimmick. It was a choice that would define their dynamic forever. Think about it. A bat is a creature of the night, a symbol of fear and the supernatural. Batman weaponizes that fear. His whole mission is built on a rigid, unbreakable code forged in tragedy. But a cat? A cat is something else entirely. Cats represent independence, grace, cunning, and a quiet confidence. They're survivors, guided by their own instincts, not by some grand moral crusade. Where Batman is trapped by his code, Catwoman is defined by her freedom. She is, as Kane once described her, a kind of female Batman, except that she was a villainess and Batman was a hero. This duality is what makes them so electric. He is a creature of order and vengeance. She is a creature of survival and desire. The Bat is about turning trauma into rigid purpose. The Feline is about navigating the world with fluid, self-serving grace. This intentional opposition created the perfect cat-and-mouse game they imagined to dance between a man who wants to save the woman he's drawn to and a woman who refuses to be caged. This brilliant idea finally hit the page in the spring of 1940, in the legendary Batman #1. But this wasn't the Catwoman we know today. She was just called the Cat, a mysterious jewel thief on a yacht. There was no catsuit, no whip, just a sharp criminal mind and a talent for disguise. In the story, she spends most of her time disguised as an old woman, fooling everyone, including the world's greatest detective. When she's finally revealed, she's just a beautiful, unnamed young woman. And, true to their noir inspiration, Batman is so captivated that he lets her escape, kicking off a theme that would last for decades. In these early Golden Age stories, she was a true master of her craft, relying on stealth and wit. To give her a softer edge, writers in the 1950s gave her a temporary backstory. She was an amnesiac flight attendant who turned to crime after a head injury. It was a classic comic book trope to make her more sympathetic. But in a brilliant move years later, she admitted the whole amnesia story was a lie, a clever fabrication she cooked up to get a lighter sentence. Even in her earliest days, she was playing the long game, proving her mind has always been her greatest weapon. Catwoman was a hit, showing up again and again in Batman's world. But then, in 1954, the party came to a dead stop. A moral panic over comics led to the creation of the Comics Code Authority, a self-censoring body with incredibly strict rules. And Catwoman, just by being herself, violated its core principles. The code insisted that criminals could never be portrayed as glamorous or sympathetic, and that good must always win. Catwoman was the definition of a glamorous criminal. She was good at her job, she was alluring, she flirted with the hero, and worst of all, she often got away. She made a life of crime look cool. And the code couldn't have that. At the same time, DC was fighting accusations about Batman and Robin's relationship. So they started pushing Batman into relationships with law-abiding women like the new Batwoman. Sexy cat burglar was no longer an option, so Catwoman vanished. For 12 long years, from her last appearance in September 1954 until 1966, she was effectively banned from DC Comics. Her comeback wasn't because of a change of heart at DC, but because of a pop culture explosion. In 1966, the Batman TV series debuted and became an overnight sensation. One of its most popular villains was Catwoman, played with a perfectly seductive energy by Julie Newmar. Audiences were hooked. The show was so huge that DC had no choice but to bring her back. She made her official Silver Age return, not in a Batman book, but in Superman's girlfriend, Lois Lane number 70 in November 1966, before quickly reclaiming her spot in Gotham. Television had made her an icon, and her persona was now fused with the whip-cracking, catsuit-wearing femme fatale the world loved. Catwoman coasted on her TV popularity for years, but in 1987, everything changed. In his groundbreaking work Batman, Year One writer Frank Miller stripped the character down and gave her the gritty, definitive origin that has defined her ever since. This was no flight attendant or simple thief. Miller's Selina Kyle was a dominatrix and sex worker from Gotham's brutal East End, a survivor forged in the city's harshest corners. In this telling, her decision to become Catwoman isn't about glamour, it's about taking back power. After seeing the mysterious new vigilante Batman in action, she's inspired to create a persona of her own. She puts on a costume, not for fancy heists, but to escape her violent pimp and fight for herself and the other women on the streets. This new origin, fleshed out in her 1989 miniseries Her Sister's Keeper, changed everything. She was no longer just Batman's adversary. She was an anti-hero, a product of the same systemic corruption that created Batman. Her crimes were a form of rebellion against a system that had failed her. This street-level survivalist take became the foundation for the modern Catwoman. It's the version that heavily informed Michelle Pfeiffer, is fiercely independent and psychologically complex portrayal in 1992's Batman Returns, cementing this darker, more tragic figure in the public imagination. She was a mirror to Batman in a whole new way. Both were orphans of Gotham who put on masks to seize control of their lives. But they operated on opposite sides of the law, forever defined by the city that made them. From a simple idea for a love interest, to a symbol of female independence, to a victim of censorship, and finally, to a complex, street-smart anti-hero. Selina Kyle's journey is one of the most fascinating in comics. Is that core idea born from 1940s Hollywood, glamour, and the simple philosophy of a cat being the opposite of a bat turned out to be a formula for endless reinvention? It's why she's endured for over 80 years. She isn't just a villain or a hero. She's a survivor, playing by her own rules, in a world that has always tried to put her in a cage. Her feline persona isn't just a costume. It's a declaration of freedom, making her the perfect, eternal partner and adversary for Gotham's Dark Knight. So, what's your favorite version of Catwoman? The Golden Age trickster, the 60s TV icon, or the modern anti-hero? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into comics history, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more stories behind your favorite characters.